Working. Test. Testing. Testing. I think it's on. I think it's working. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a while. So I'll start again. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. My name is Steve Smith, and I'm your host, and got something a little bit different for you. This one, look, I have had a break. I've been unwell. I lost my voice for 2 weeks, 2 bloody weeks. Can you believe it? I could barely speak. In actual fact, I really couldn't speak at all. And that's in part what you'll hear about in this podcast a little bit as we go through. Look, this is a great podcast. This is one that I've been wanting to bring to you for quite some time. It's the boardroom. This is the boardroom segment of the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast, and it has been a while since I brought this one to you. This is a special interview. It's been a good couple of years in the making. Finally got the chance and the time to do it, albeit I do apologise for the clearing of the voice a few times in this interview. You'll hear it. I was struggling towards the end, and no sooner had we finished the interview that I pretty much started losing my voice altogether. So, and then subsequently lost it for the best 2.5 weeks afterwards. So I've been unwell. Family's been unwell. That's why it's been a while to put this one together. But I'm really pumped to be able to bring it to you. Very excited. As I said, the boardroom segment of the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. This is an interview with the one and only Mat Goggin, and we're talking about 7 Mile Beach and what's going on down there in Hobart, Tasmania. We recorded this back at the beginning of August, so it's a little bit delayed, and I'm pumped about bringing it to you. Of course, I want to make sure that I let you in on something. You have to listen to this podcast right to the end, because I'm doing a little competition on social media about this podcast afterwards. And there's a question that I need answered by somebody correctly, and you're going to win a prize. And you have to hear the podcast, and you'll hear what it's all about when you get there. Make sure you listen to the end with myself and Matt, and make sure you then jump onto my socials, and I'm going to start showing you some details about how you can enter the competition, get in the competition to win a prize. You're going to want to be in it. You're going to want to win the prize. Trust me, I've got absolutely no doubts you want to be part of it. So make sure you listen right to the end, like I said, and keep an eye on my socials, because they're going to be tied together, and so I can give away this prize. This is episode number 84. The boardroom segment of the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast is sponsored by the Social Media Birdie. The Social Media Birdie is a business that is specialized to look after the social media and digital media of businesses in and around the golf industry. That's what it's all about. The Social Media Birdie is headed up by a dynamic duo of social media expert Brianna Graydon and golf expert Steve Smith. Oh wait, hang on. That's me. Sorry. I'll start again. Is headed up by a dynamic duo of social media expert Brianna Graydon and golf expert me. Brianna's passion and expertise is sought after by numerous industries that have seen her speak on all things social media at national conferences this year alone in Melbourne and Sydney, just to give you an idea of Brianna's background. And of course, most recently, just a few weeks ago at the Sydney International Convention Centre. Now, if you want to make a difference with your social media, digital marketing, or even improve your website at your golf club, at your golf business, any business that's in and around the golf industry, that's where we come in. Look, we believe we have the expertise and the experience across both the social media, digital marketing industry and the golf industry to make that difference for you. We can make it happen. For more information about the Social Media Birdie and who we are and what we can do for you, head to our website at thesocialmediabirdie.com.au. That's birdie spelled Birdie if you're not sure, thesocialmediabirdie.com.au, or send us an email at tweet@thesocialmediabirdie.com.au to chat to us about how we can help you. Guys and girls out there, if you're working on the golf courses or if you're golf employees or wherever, pass this on to your general managers, to your presidents, to your captains, to people who are the decision makers in the golf clubs to see how we can help you get your messages out there and get your digital presence right. The Social Media Birdie, we're better than par. Ladies and gentlemen, this is something pretty special. We're ticking a few boxes here, and at my end we're launching into a whole new stratosphere, to be honest. This segment is going to be called The Boardroom, where we get a chance to talk with owners of golf courses, general managers, board members, and the like. So we're diving into a bit of the background of how clubs and golf courses function. It's a little bit different, like I said. I've had a couple of owners on in the past. I'm really excited to this. International star, Australian golfing champion, and certainly the man behind a pretty impressive project that's coming up. It's the one and only. It's Mat Goggin. G'day, Matt. Welcome to the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast.
Hey, Steve. How you going?
Mate, I am...
Are you the Golfing Greenkeeper or is Steve okay?
Mate, Steve's good. I think the other one's just a bit of a long handle. So we'll go with Steve. I'm happy with that. I know Roscoe from the My Love of Golf podcast calls me Stevie. So every now and then it's Stevie, Steve, or Steve. Oh, mate, I don't care. It's all good. It's all good. Now, I want to get this really going. We're doing this one via Zoom, which could be a little bit interesting. So we'll see how the signal goes every now and then. We've got a couple of little delays to and fro, but hopefully it's stable enough, mate. So look, this is, like I said, it's the boardroom. I appreciate your time. We're going to try and dive into a lot of the background here, a little bit of architecture stuff, a little bit about you, but mostly, obviously, about 7 Mile and this wonderful project. Mate, I'm going to do an icebreaker to begin with, which is what I do, and it's called Steve Super 7. It's quick fire 7 questions. Now, you haven't seen them, and I have this usually for superintendents and greenkeepers that I've asked, but mate, you're well travelled. This is a new golf course thing that you're doing.
I don't have any idea about greenkeeping or the likes. So
well, these things.
Be bamboozled by those questions.
You know what? It's very generic, and the idea is for a bit of fun, mate. So let's do it. Number 1. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
Very good. Number 2. Now, this is going to go into a little bit of what's going on with 7 Mile, how we're going to unfold down there. Dogs or no dogs allowed on the golf course?
I know I like dogs on the golf course.
Have you? Is it something? Do you have a pup? Have you had a pup to go around yourself, or?
Yeah, no, I've always had dogs. I got a couple of dogs. One will definitely come in here and start barking at some stage during this. But no, I love dogs. I'm definitely a good dog person, not a cat person.
Not a cat person.
That doesn't, turn off too many of your listeners. But,
no, look,
I
don't think so. I think lots of people love dogs, and the idea of having dogs out on the course every now and then when you're playing, we've seen it on some courses that are moving forward, I suppose, in being progressive. It's a little bit of a different way of thinking, which is, I think
it's an interesting one because you could, if everyone's doing it, then it just becomes a nightmare. But if it's a few people, it's all right. But if you had 160 dogs out there on a big day, it'd be an interesting day.
I take my superintendent's hat off, because when I was doing my time in the likes, and I used to see people walking dogs and they'd run through bunkers and that, I was brought up and I was being taught from a super that was like, that is not happening on our golf course, bar none. And I used to basically be the person who would tell people politely to get out. But I've since grown up, I think, and a bit more of an open mind. All right, now number 3. And I'm your first professional golfer I've had on here, so this is really interesting. Stripes or no stripes on fairways for presentation?
I think stripes are better. When you say no stripes, you're talking like the half cut.
Black and white as we call it, or half and half.
I would say that is a staff who are just interested in doing the bare minimum, getting through the day, getting through the week, and doing the same routine and the same mowing pattern, and they don't have any attention to detail. If they don't have attention to detail, they're probably not very good at it.
Okay, there you go. I like that. That's going to knock a few people around, I reckon. I like it.
Well, I've definitely played at some courses a lot.
Yes.
Maybe one of my old local golf courses, and they definitely just mowed it the same way, and you would literally have short shots out of grass that had been mown the same way for so long that it was, 4 or 5 centimetres long, when it's like a 20 mil cut or something, or not even 15 mil cut, and it's like, what are we doing here? We're pitching out a rough in the middle of the fairway just because you can't be bothered changing direction.
And most courses, without being silly, most courses can't do an Augusta where it's all in the one direction because they just don't have that. So. Mate, good answer. We haven't had that one before.
If you're going to go half and half, maybe switch direction.
That's right. That's what you do. You've got to turn it around so you get a better cut.
Yeah.
Everything is all about quality.
Yeah.
If you switched on, and I'm not being unfair to people, I don't think. All right, mate, we move on. Number 4, green coloured sand or natural coloured sand to repair divots.
I don't think it makes that much difference. I mean, the grass should grow through pretty quickly.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
it's literally a visual thing.
I mean, it's a visual thing. I'm not. I don't.
Don't care.
It doesn't bother me either way. Take it or leave it.
It's not going to be a big boardroom meeting
No.
with you and some of the key executives at 7 Mile when you come up with the decision
No, and
makers.
again, it could go down to if it's a poorly designed golf course where you get a lot of divots in one particular chipping area, and
Yes.
it just looks like a sandy hole, and you want to paint it green or make it green. Maybe there's something wrong with the architecture, not with the sand.
Oh, leave that one. Well, we might bring that one up soon. Very good, very good. Number 5, a favourite grass variety. Of all the courses you played, mate, all over the world, do you have anything that you prefer to play off in terms of, like, say, golf shots, fairways?
To be honest, the fescue grass or the mix of fescue or whatever you find on sort of the coastal courses in the UK,
Yep.
especially the further north you get, like it's just great to hit off.
Awesome.
Great to hit off. I mean,
Awesome.
obviously I've played super manicured golf courses all over the world, but there's something about the old turf that
Yep.
feels pretty good, the old fescue. It doesn't have to be just pure monoculture. It can be a whole heap of blends, but yeah.
I like that one because I think that leads to a more sustainable golf course, if I'm being brutally honest. A mix of different types of things. It doesn't need to be a monoculture. You're ticking my boxes here, mate, very well. Number 6, a preferred style of golf course. It's a multiple choice, and well, I can't put 7 Mile in there because we're not there yet. But preferred style of course to play, and I'm not even sure if you've played all of these. We start with Cape Wickham, Kingston Heath, or Elliston, all quite different in their own way. But do you have a preference of style there?
If I'm only allowed to choose between those 3,
Yep.
it would probably be Kingston Heath because I think I like the sand belt. I mean, I love the pure links, to be honest. Like if there's something about going to Great Britain or Scotland, and playing. There's just something when you walk out there, it just feels like real golf. There's just something about it. Everything about the atmosphere, everything about the clubs, everything about the weather, whether it's a nice day or a terrible day, that feels like real golf to me. While Cape Wickham's spectacular, Kingston Heath, I love sandbelt golf courses. Elliston, I haven't played, but I've seen a lot of pictures of it. And,
Sure.
They're all great looking golf courses, but I would say none of the above and enter a little box that said link.
Mat Goggin box over here.
Exactly.
All right, very good. And mate, and the final one, number 7, if you could walk around, now this one interests me a lot. If you could walk around, not play, just walk, any golf course in Australia tomorrow, which one would it be?
Royal Melbourne Composite.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I just love that place. And it's probably because I have played it so often, and I spent time working in the shop there. I worked in Australian Open there on the range.
Oh, really?
So much time. Yeah, I spent so much time there, sort of between just after I finished high school, and everything about that place I love.
Wow. How long did you do that for?
It was from the Australian Open through till it was probably like 3 or 4 months, I reckon.
Yeah, nice. That's
and
cool.
I think I played the composite course every night because it was daylight savings.
As you do.
And as you do, because I was a member at Royal Hobart, so we had sort of the reciprocal ride.
Okay,
I was sort of I worked on the range at the Australian Open, and then I stayed on and worked for Bruce Green just casually in the shop and
Wow.
just doing, most random things. It was probably just more doing me a favour than anything. But I would play every night, and I reckon I was the only one out there. So you can imagine just every night
That's so
play
good.
the composite,
Wow.
and it was just me. I didn't see members or anyone.
That is the stuff of legends, being able to tell that
Nuts,
story.
right?
That's
It's a little different now. It's a little busier now, but that was like
Sure.
in the early 90s, and it was just empty.
wow. Hard to think of that, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's crazy. That's awesome. Well, mate, that's Steve Super 7. Thank you. We've got some, I think we're going to be able, people will compare. It's something that goes between everyone. So people will listen and compare their thoughts, and they think about their own and compare that to your responses as well, mate. So thank you very much. Good fun. Now, a little bit of I've done a little bit of research here, mate, and you might be able to correct me some of this stuff because I just remember you being the Mat Goggin that I would see. Was it bucket hat? Is that what you used to wear when you were out playing?
No, I didn't wear a bucket hat.
Oh,
no.
no. Maybe I'm
No?
thinking of
Maybe
something
that
else.
was Michael Barry.
Oh, okay, maybe not. But I remember the long hair anyway, and out on the
I
tour.
was
And
Tommy Fleetwood before there was Tommy Fleetwood.
there you go, very good. But you played plenty of golf, as we've said, and I've got a little bit of background just to give people an idea, because not everyone knows who you are. Certainly, probably even younger people might just know that you're this guy trying to build a golf course in Tassie and know some of your background. But I've got that you were here in 1994, the Tassie Open winner as an amateur at Huntingdale. Now that's pretty good start in your early years.
Tassie Open? No, so I won the Australian Amateur at Huntingdale.
Australian Amateur at
I won
Huntingdale.
the Tassie Open at, it was at Ulverston.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice.
Up there. And I won the Tassie Amateur that year as well.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that was a good year.
In the mid-90s, 94 or 90?
95.
95.
I won their Tassie Amateur in, I think, 94, 95.
Yeah.
Won the Tassie Open maybe in 94 and won the Australian Amateur in 95.
How old would you have been then?
20 and 21.
Yeah, right. Wow. Okay. Is that...
I just come out of the Australian Institute of Sport, basically.
Okay. And, yeah, right. Because you're a proud Tasmanian, of course. This is all... you said you're early golf in Royal Hobart?
Yeah, I actually played... the first course I was a membership with was Tassie.
Okay.
Tasmania Golf Club. And then I was a member at Royal Hobart at the same time, because this was back when it was $80 to be a member of Royal Hobart as a junior for the whole year. And I think it was $50 for Tassie. So
wow.
I used to play both. And then it was all Royal, because once I started playing a lot, the practice facilities at Royal, even though they weren't great, there was just like a nice big practice fairway, while Tassie, I don't know whether you've been there, it has that sort of high tee that hits down to the road, and it's not great. It's not great. It's more of a warm-up, go hit a few before you play, than it is like a practice range. So I was spending more and more time at Royal, and that just sort of became my home club eventually, full-time.
Yeah, wow. And then obviously onwards and upwards. And we've got you, I've got some of the stuff here. You obviously had a number of professional wins. You're a winner in Australia in 1998. I've got the ANZ Championship at Royal Canberra.
Yeah, it was when we used to have a tour championship. So that was sort of like the last one of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that's
probably 98 sounds about right.
Yeah. Let's go from memory. I've got your second in the 08 Australian Open that was at Royal Sydney back then. Yep. That's a pretty impressive finish. I've managed to finish second in all of them. Right. I don't know whether that's good or is it something to be happy about or just disappointed about. I finished second it depends.
PGA, the Aussie Open, and the Masters.
Well, yeah, right. Well, I mean, you're obviously fighting it out. You're there to win. You're not there to come second, obviously.
That's
but
right. Yeah.
I'm no professional, but I'm sure that's how the mentality is that you go out there. 5-time winner on the Web.com tour, 2-time winner on the Challenge tour. You played in all the majors. Is that right?
Yep.
You played Augusta, the US Open. That's incredible stuff. I mean, I'm just trying to build the picture for people, like I said, that don't know who you are. I've got here your highest finish was tied 5th in the 09 Open Championship at Turnberry.
Yeah, in a major, yeah.
What was that like, playing a place like Turnberry over there? You talked about those courses just before.
Yeah, no, Turnberry was awesome. It was I played in the last group with Tom Watson. That was the year Tom Watson nearly won. Obviously, I think I was tied for the lead with 5 holes to go, something like that. So it was, obviously my biggest disappointment, even though it was probably, one of the most memorable days. It wasn't memorable for a lot of the right reasons for me, but still, it was still, something to look back on with some pride.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking at it going, I'm interviewing Matt. Again, I'm just interviewing Mat Goggin, building 7. Oh, shit, 5th Open Champion. Okay, right, got it. Yeah, it's huge. Now, one little bit that some people want to know, and I didn't realise doing this bit of research, is your mum, Lindy Goggin, she achieved so many things in golf as well. She was fantastic at golf. Can you tell us a little bit about your mum's background?
Yeah, she was a 4-time Australian Amateur, or 3-time Australian Amateur winner, 4-time Victorian Amateur winner.
Wow.
She won the individual in the Spirito Santo, which is the women's individual at the World Cup, basically. And then that team won with Edwina Kennedy and maybe Jane Locke. She was runner-up in the US Amateur. She won the first Australian women's PGA as an amateur. She never turned pro, but she represented Australia for 20 years, and she was she's in all the fames and
and I've got that she's got the Order of Australia medal.
She was probably just before a lot of women. She had to go and live in America, so she decided she had a young family. She didn't want to do that, so
Right.
she never chased turning pro. But she was, probably one of the best players in the world that didn't go on and turn pro. That's for sure.
Wow, that's staggering. And I've got here that she's the winner of or been awarded the Order of Australia Medal for her services to golf.
Yep.
That's this is I had no idea. I'm just building all this stuff.
Right.
Did you guys
your
own?
job to know what my mum's up to?
Did you? Yeah, that's right. Did you guys own golf in Tassie in Hobart? What's this? That's pretty. That's a pretty awesome thing.
Obviously, Mum was, growing up down. Well, okay, I'll put it this way: every time I went to an Australian tour event, all the ladies members asked me how's Mum, and was Mum there. They were more excited if Mum was there than if I was there. Even when I was a top 50 player in the world, they were just like, "Is Lindy here? I haven't seen Lindy. Is she out here following you?" So it didn't matter which club we went to. It didn't, every whether it was in Adelaide or whether it was in Perth,
Really?
you name it, Brisbane, Sydney, Victoria, they all knew her. Even when I went to New Zealand.
Wow. Okay. That's impressive. We're building the picture of Mat Goggin. Did you get into golf because your mum was playing a lot? And I assume.
Not really. No, it was kind of like it was always around, so it was always available to me. And I played a lot of other sports, and it was like most people. You start with your grandfather's clubs or a cut down set, and back then they were it was impossible. Like golf for an 8 or 9 year old was basically impossible. So I didn't really take to it. When I got a bit stronger, and I think I was playing a lot of tennis at the time.
Okay.
It just became. I went out with a bunch of tennis buddies, and I just got hooked. And once I got hooked,
well, the rest is history.
That was it. Yeah.
Very, very good. Now, mate, very impressive. So that's the picture of Mat Goggin, who you are, who you've sort of come across, and you're still playing golf as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I played a little bit. Obviously, COVID messed up a lot for a lot of players. Like I was kind of just getting reshuffled out of the Corn Ferry tour at that point. So there was like 2 years where you basically were either Monday qualifying or you couldn't actually get to Q school. So
right.
And I'm 49 now, turning 50 next year. So I played a few tournaments in Australia at the start of the year and played okay, and kind of got back into it after not playing much I played golf, but not competitive golf for a couple of years. And now I'm going to play a lot in the summertime in Australia and get ready for, hopefully the next chapter on the senior tour.
Awesome. So you'll be playing our summer?
Yep.
Oh,
I'll
ripper.
Play, yeah.
We'll be able to get out there and see you. Good stuff. Keep an eye out on telly. Very exciting. Very exciting, mate. Okay, so now a bit of background to you and I. I got in touch with you back in December of 2020, as a little bit into the COVID time there. You were extremely kind enough to sort of give me, you nearly gave me about an hour of your time, actually, when I sent you an email from nowhere. Actually, one of my followers had said, "Oh, listen, I've heard this old story about 7 Mile. It's sort of been sitting and floating around over the years. Do you know anything about it, Steve?" Because I sort of talk about a lot of upcoming course designs and construction and things that have been sitting around. And I was like, no, I don't know a lot about Tassie. I've only ever been there once to play Barnbugle, like a lot of, I guess, mainlanders. Yep. And then looking into it, I was like, what the hell is this? This sounds quite intriguing. I dropped your line, and then Mat Goggin replies, and I'm thinking, what a strange coincidence. Another bloke by the name of Mat Goggin. And mate, we ended up talking, and you were in the States one night, and you gave me a lot of your time, mate, so I really appreciated that. And that was actually on Australia Day. I couldn't think of a better day that we chatted. It was Australia Day here in 2021. And you were telling me the background and so on. And it really blew my mind talking to you about it, what was on the horizon for this sort of place and this project. And I learned, the more I talk to people about golf course projects and architects and so on, is learning how long things take. So, they do take a long time. So 7 Mile Beach, it's not something you thought about during COVID when I'd spoken to you. It's been happening for a while. So can you tell us a bit about how 7 Mile was born and how it came to be?
Yeah, so when we spoke, we'd just substantially commenced the development, which meant that the permit was valid forever. Like they couldn't take it off us. Right. And that had been quite a struggle because, getting the permit, I emailed Mike Clayton, I think in 2010. And we had talked about it earlier when he was doing Barnbugle Dunes, when that very early on he was showing me pictures, and I'm like, why are you doing a golf course up in Barnbougle? Like, there's a perfect area right in Hobart. Like, somebody should do that. Just do it down there. And then he showed me a few pictures, and I'm like, oh, that looks pretty good. And, the rest is history for that place. But it was around 2010. I'd had a foundation at the time, and we were looking to sort of have a facility, if you like, where we could use the facility as sort of a training ground for people that might not necessarily get the opportunities. And if it was good enough, it was like a Barnbougle Dunes, well, then they could work anywhere in the world. You know what I mean? Whether it was in, turf grass management, or whether it was in just, in the retail or any parts, in the business of the golf course, any of that sort of stuff. So that was sort of the premise, if you like. And there was a golf course that was coming up for a new lease called Rosny, right, which was just a little 9-hole public golf course. And we had tried to get the lease and take it over. As it turned out, there was a few other things going on there that we weren't aware of. Was that the actual council was trying to close the golf course, so they're only offering a 10-year lease, and they gave it to someone who didn't have an interest in progressing it as a golf course. It was sort of like the people that ran the pool across the street type thing. So sort of out of frustration, I kind of said to the other guy in the foundation, like, "Well, stuff it, we'll build our golf course at 7 Mile Beach." And that's kind of like how it started. It was, but I kind of had been looking at it, trying to work out, well, why hadn't something been built there? It had been the sort of piece of land where, ever since I was a kid, there had been talked of some big Japanese development, some big, people from Melbourne were going to do this and that, and nothing ever happened. So I kind of went through the process of, well, why didn't it happen? Like, there's got to be a really good reason, because it's a weird place in that you've got the airport, right, and you've got 7 Mile Beach, which is the little township next to Royal Hobart. I mean, it's a beautiful beach that's 10 kilometres long, that is 20 minutes out of the city, and nobody lives there. And the big area where the golf course is, it's just nothing, and there's no sort of, there's some sand mine going on there, but there really is it's just abandoned, and it's right in the main growth corridor, and it just didn't make any sense. So I thought, well, there must have been some key reason, So I looked at whether it was Aboriginal heritage or coastal inundation or, flora and fauna. There must be something down there that's protected, and nothing. It was an unmanaged area. It was not managed by parks, but basically unmanaged as far as any sort of intensive land management. There was pines on it that were all from a pine plantation on the area right next door, basically what we call 5 Mile Beach, but where the sand mine is, that whole, because it's 900 hectares, a piece of land. Like, it's not small.
Wow.
There's a massive piece of land. Yeah. So there's about, 300 hectares outside of the mining lease. Half of that was pine plantations that had lost their cutting rights, and now had just been left to grow back, and there was nothing going on. So once I realised there wasn't a good reason, that's when I approached Clates, because I was wandering around there and they're going, wow, this is amazing. This could be an amazing golf course. And I'd known it since I was a kid that there were sand dunes and it was all very spectacular.
Yep.
But it's like when you drive along the side of the road and you look at it and like, wow, wouldn't that be an amazing hole down there? And you get out your Bushnell and it's like, what's 600, like you can't even hit the feature you're trying to hit because it's so far away. It's like, oh, okay, my idea of what is good or what distance is just completely, beyond the pale. So I took it from, I went with the perspective that, well, I don't really know what I'm looking at. I have a general idea. So that's when I emailed Clates in 2010 and said, look, you come down and have a look. So he comes down and have a look. And that's when he made that sort of famous, I don't know whether you're infamous now, when we're driving out. And he said, if we screw it up, it'll still be the second best golf course in Australia.
So a good piece of land in his world.
Like the piece of what property could be. So that sort of gave me the confidence to be like, okay, I contacted the government, it's on Crown land. I'm like, look, and to be honest, without Barnbougle Dunes, this wouldn't have happened because the government was aware of just how successful and how many jobs and the economic activity and the tourism numbers Barnbougle could drive. So to have another piece of land in the south where it's like, we think it's equal, we can do something as good as Barnbougle Dunes, that sort of got my foot at least in the door. And having a relatively high profile through golf, that helped as well. And that's when it started. So that started a 4-year process of actually getting permits. And then once we got the permits, it was then funding it, because some of the investors, after 4 years of waiting for the permits, had
Sure.
gone on to do other things, and that's sort of like what happens with these developments. Is they they sort of dwindle on the vine because of all the delays
Yeah.
and all the like capital's got to go. Like when someone wants to invest, they're not looking to invest in 4 years' time. They're
Yeah.
looking to invest now and get
No,
out in four
that's
years'
why they're
time,
there, right?
right? And that's why a lot of these local governments and state governments, they just don't understand the velocity of money these days, and how money just wants to make a return.
Yep.
So when you're dealing with this sort of development, you need the people who have the passion and get it. But if you're trying to actually raise some money, you need more than that.
Yeah, wow. And that's long, right? This is the thing. You talked about money and people they've got the money, they want to invest now. That's they want to get in.
Yeah.
They don't want to sit around and go, well, look, we'll stop and think about it. We'll park our cash over there and we'll do nothing with it. No, they're looking for that return as fast as possible, in a sense. Yeah. And 10 years before I'd spoken to you, that's the lead time that I want people to get their heads around. These things don't happen.
Yeah, so 4 years. So that was 4 years, and then there was some housing involved that was kind of a bit of a carrot to get investors in, so that my foundation could run the golf resort. Basically,
Right.
That was the idea. But we didn't get the rezoning, but we got the permit for the golf course. So I'm like, well, this is a great win. Like, this is all we wanted.
Yep.
Because there was a bunch of people who just wanted to do like a Barnbougle resort. But I think some of those people had fallen in love with like the idea of housing and making serious money.
Yep.
And then once that went away, they're like, oh, okay, we tried. Bad luck, guys. I'm like, what do you mean bad luck? Like, we got it. We're doing it. This is amazing. And I was playing heavily at the time. It was 2014. So I'm right in the middle of my career, and not living in Australia. And so we kind of kicked the tires around with a few people, trying to bring some other people in, but it wasn't really my focus, because we always had you had 4 years till you had to start. So I was just to get substantial commencement. So it wasn't like I wasn't pushing it. But then when we got to the point where it looked like we might lose the permit, that's when I sort of talked to a few friends, and we're like, well, we need to do this. Like this, we can't not start this project. Let's just get it started and see what happens. And that was sort of when I spoke to you.
Yep.
We just spent 12 months getting everything ready for the permit. Because not just when you get the permit, it's just satisfying all the conditions, and getting all the engineering done, and getting a start works permit, and getting consent. None of this stuff was happening during COVID quickly. You think that when you get a permit, it's like, great, let's go. It's like, oh, no, you've got to meet these 15 conditions.
Yep.
Once you meet these 15 conditions, and some of them might be like, one of them was to get a bird strike report from a particular accredited person, who very few people in Australia have the accreditation, but it was under like the Federal Aviation Act. Someone had just plucked this out, and the funny thing was, like, so someone had to find the person, they had to come down, they've got to write the report.
Yeah,
so you might not get the report for 3 months.
Yeah.
And that you can't do anything until that gets signed off on. It gets put in a drawer. The person who got it said, I've never seen one of these before, and there's no development in Clarence that's ever had to have one before.
What?
And you just think, well, why am I doing it? Do you know what I mean? That's the 3 months that delays. But they're the sort of things that happen, and they're sort of the hurdles that you have to step over that make investing in these sorts of things incredibly difficult and drawn out.
Yeah, I mean, I thinking about that, I was thinking about the course that I was working at, and we were doing work at Katoomba, west of Sydney, and similar thing, to start the rebuilding of some of the holes there that was into virgin bushland, if you like, where they had to, in lieu of a resort that was wanting to be built and so on, they had to get a flora and fauna report and count how many gang cockatoos were on the property and all this sort of stuff before the next hurdle can be looked at and then jumped over with some sort of report, and then the next one, and you talk about Aboriginal heritage, and you talk about all these things have to be done. A lot of people go, 7 Mile starters or any project, they now require so many stops and starts before you can actually do anything that people can see tangibly on the ground.
Yeah, and once you get, and that's the sort of things you're talking about are That's to get your development application and to get your permit through council.
Right.
It's like, okay, your development application, here's broad strokes what we're going to do. It's going to be 18 holes. We're going to have this, here, that, whatever. And then you get to the nitty gritty where each part needs its own building permit. So you need a specific building permit. So that triggers some other things. But because it's Crown land and it's in Clarence and it's managed by Parks, you have to get sign off from Clarence, Parks, and Crown land.
Wow.
And none of those, they don't, it's not seamless working with any of them. Like, there's so many times. I mean, I joke with some of my friends that the quickest response I get from emails in Tasmania, or the most reliable response, is out of the office. On leave, out of the office. Only work Tuesday.
Oh, stop it.
And it's just like, kids are like, oh, great, they respond. It's like, oh, no, it's out of office reply. They'll be back in 5 weeks.
That'd drive you mad. You'd be chasing this stuff.
It's just part of it. And, but you have to getting your DA approved, like, you then have to get a start works permit. So you can't do anything. So that's when council might put some conditions on. So there's a lot of generic, got to get your engineering done.
Yeah.
You know, what time, you can't put a sign up. You can only operate between these hours. Wash down all your machinery coming onto the site, all that sort of stuff. So it's all very generic. But the bird strike report was just like an extra one in there. So you do that. So you get a start works permit from council. Now you have to get a start works permit from the government.
Oh man!
Right, and I mean, we had some of them take 6 months to get it through. And it's almost like anything you want to do on your project, they have a veto over it, even though you've got it approved. They can just be like, no, you can't start. You're like, what do you mean? It's like, no, we're not,
So
yeah, so it's a very
wow.
Yeah, so that's why getting substantial commencement during COVID.
Yeah, right.
Coming up against that deadline, all these things because the difficult thing during COVID was just getting replies or getting work done. For that first, like, basically, everything was shut down. I mean, we all know what it was like, but that just meant that there was so much backlog for these people that even when they came into work, justifiably, they have 6 months worth of stuff to go through. You've just sent your email in, but they've got emails from 6 months ago to catch up on, or whatever that sort of stuff was. So it was a hard time. Then we got it, and that's when I spoke to you on Australia Day. It was like, it's happening. We've started.
Yeah, because you were apprehensive in a way to talk much about it actually happening, because you still didn't know whether it was going to happen, really.
Yeah, well, I think at the time we were just trying to validate the permit and then see if we could raise some money or however, because it was just me and another guy, and you're always apprehensive about putting a ton of money into these sorts of things anyway. But then we just decided we'll just keep going, and we'll do it kind of in the spirit of Barndougal Tunes. We're not going to go down there and have $20 million and just put the fanciest irrigation system in and all that sort of stuff. We're going to try and do it budget conscious without jeopardizing the main idea. You know what I mean? And DeVries and Clates have been great as far as that goes, because when I talked to Mike DeVries, he says, look, I've done plenty of projects where we get there and the budget's $100,000 or $200,000. We just make it work, whether it's, and that sort of spirit has been the way we've looked at it the whole way through. It's not like, you see a lot of these courses with these budgets of $20-30 million to build one golf course. I'm like, we're going to build the whole development for that. Like the whole thing easily. Not just one course, that'll be two courses and all the infrastructure
and that's massive. Like you said, if you bundle it up to begin with and you say, look, like you said, 20-30 million straight, you probably go through it pretty quickly too, if that's the way you're going to go about it. I'm sure.
Exactly, yeah. So we've just sort of been going, month to month, and all of a sudden, what are we, 2.5 years in, and we're pretty much at the finish line on course one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been incredible to watch. One of the things that I was going to ask you there was, talking about getting investors and getting the money and to get things going. and that it had changed the idea from the housing where you're going to get people would have obviously made some really good money out of it, no doubt. Was that a harder thing to do then? Once that had dropped away in the project and it was just the essence of golf down here, this is what we're doing, this is the goal, right, originally. Did you find it difficult then? You said it's just you and one other. I don't know if there's anything's changed since then, but was that harder then to sell, in a sense, to get investors? Is it?
Yeah, well, we didn't even try in the end because it just seemed impossible.
Right, okay. So, so you got to do it yourself. But you're putting your money where your mouth is.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't... we didn't get any... Like, I talked to a lot of people. And, I mean, I wasn't out there, like, really pushing and selling it and stuff like that. Like, I would just talk to people who might contact us or, someone heard you're doing that, we'd love to talk to you. But it's always a lot of talk. And when it comes to the dotted line, you waste months, like you do. Like, it's kind of part of the game, really. You talk to someone for 6 months and you do visits and blah, 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 and then you can't get them to sign on. So then you move on to the next person. And it's amazing how quickly 2 or 3 years go by.
Yeah, right.
And you're getting to that point where you're like, well, this is just not, like, we're not moving. We need to do something.
Yeah. Just grab the reins and go. Yeah, wow. Okay, so moving on from that, the initial stage, I'm curious then, how did you come to choose Clayton DeVries Pont, CDP, and you mentioned Clates was in early. Is that where that came from, or how did you said you called Clates in 2010, or where did that come from?
Yeah. I'd known Clates a long time, since I was first term pro, actually, when he was a good amateur when my mum was an amateur.
Right.
He knew my grandfather. My grandfather and his best buddy down at Royal Hobart used to travel around and watch Aussie tour events.
Okay.
They would come and stay. They sponsored a few. They would come and stay at my grandfather's house when the Tassie Open was on. This is all before I was born, but so when my grandfather died, actually, suddenly it was the first week I was playing a tournament in Australia, and I didn't know Clates was like a really good. Clates was Michael Clayton, a good player. He won on the European tour. He was like one of the guys that, was a mainstay on the Australian tour. And he kind of came up to me and said that, sorry to hear about your grandfather. He was a great man. If you need anything, blah, blah, blah. Now, I didn't know him at all, but that really meant a lot to me at the time because, my grandfather introduced me to golf. He was obsessed with my golf, and the fact that he wasn't going to get to see me play as a pro was a big deal to me. And to Clates, it was probably just a throwaway line. But the fact I'm a very loyal person, and I've always been very loyal to Clates. And a lot of it comes down to that. And he's a great guy, and he's obviously very astute in his opinions, and he's very well read on the game, and he brings a lot. But it was really the personal relationship that had me call him in. And I knew he'd done Barnbougle June, so I was familiar with it. And you would be familiar with the process. So, yeah, that's how that happened. And then it became, so it was Mike Clayton Golf was the first email. Right. And about the next lot of emails, it was Mike at OC Ogilvy.
Ogilvy Clayton. Golf. Yep.
And then the next email address was at OCCM.
OCM, I think. There was one C and then there were two Cs.
No, it's Ogilvy, Clayton, Cocking and Mead.
Oh, okay. Righto.
And then when Clates got the boot, I never got an email from him from OCM.
Oh, okay, of course. Yes.
So so really Clates had been the main part of it on the main journey, and I didn't feel right because I didn't really know. I didn't know at the time. I actually was calling Clates about something to do with with 7 Mile Beach. I didn't know he had left. And he's like, it's a bit awkward. I'm not there anymore. Because I was dealing with Ash and Mike Cocking and Clates, but I didn't realise, I was talking to Clates about something, and that made me feel uncomfortable because no one had told me, and B, it was Clates. I wanted Clates to be there on opening day,
sure.
He'd been there the whole time.
Yeah.
What I mean? So when he said, well, we've got a new partnership with Mike DeVries and Frank Pont. I didn't really know Frank at all because I hadn't done seen any of his restoration or the stuff he'd done in Europe. But I was, aware of DeVries through Kate Wickham, and had obviously played there, and I thought that place was amazing. And the other big draw was that DeVries builds.
Yeah, he's there.
He's still in the. Yeah, he's been on site for 18 months. Like, it's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
and like the quality of work they do, like it's always a bit of a leap of faith, right? But it's stunning what they're doing. But with Doak and with Crenshaw Core and with Gill, they're almost so big and so busy, or they've moved into that part of their business cycle where it's just like they have all their associates and they trust them, they do an amazing job.
yep.
So you might not necessarily get Doak on site. You're
Yeah.
definitely not getting him there for 300 days
Yeah.
out of the year.
That's right.
Well, do you know what I mean? And like now I've got this opportunity, and De Vries is obviously like he knows he might not get another chance to build on this sort of a site. So it's kind of it works well for both sides, because he can be like, well, this could be it. This could be like one
Yeah.
of the best golf courses I ever get to build. And I'm going to put and Mike likes to put. He likes to touch everything.
Yeah. Right.
He doesn't
Okay.
let anyone do anything
Yep.
in a lot of respects. So yeah, so it's been that's sort of how it happened. It was basically Clayton, and then there was when it became CDP. It's like a bonus to me, because like having De Vries on the journey as well has been awesome.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Looking at that on paper and thinking to myself, Clates, Barnbugle, Tassie, Wickham, De Vries, Tassie, and I'm thinking they
Yeah,
combined. It's almost like I don't mean it in a bad way when I say perfect storm, but it's a perfect ingredient blend of architects really and builders to have on your side. It's like you've gone, okay, I'll cherry pick that from Dunes and I'll cherry pick that from Wickham, and I'm going to build 7
yeah.
Mile. I mean, it's pretty impressive.
It's interesting because they're very collaborative, and I think they sort of they're understanding that being a good player, I have certain viewpoints, and they're very generous with their time, listening to what I have to say. But I pretty much am of the viewpoint that you bring someone in who's an expert because you want them because of their expertise. You don't want to bring someone in as an expert so you can tell them how smart you are. You know what I mean?
It's funny.
So
It's funny you say that, because that was going to be. I was going to ask you this very specifically, because you're well travelled, because and there's a lot of pro golfers that ultimately get into trying that architecture side of stuff. I mean, here in New South Wales, here where I am in the beaches, Craig Parry's doing a lot of work. In remodelling courses around here locally. I know Paul Gower's done a little bit of work in Western Sydney on a smaller scale. Then you got the big scale stuff where you get your Tiger Woods is getting into it and that sort of thing. So I wasn't sure where you were going to fit into that, whether you were going to be part of that, or like you said, you've got the experts on.
My interest is in getting the right people into the right role and allowing them to flourish and do great things. Like my role is, I'm not a golf course architect. I haven't spent my whole life studying golf courses. I haven't spent my whole life sitting on a dozer, knowing what it feels like to shape a hole or shape a green, or to bring something back. It's like, oh, remember when we built the 6 hole here and we did that?
Yep.
Did that. I'd like to do a little bit slightly different version of that. I mean, I've just sort of like played golf, and yeah, I've played all the good golf courses, and I have a reasonably decent good eye for architecture, but I don't understand anything it is, A, to be a golf course architect, or B, to be any good at it, let alone be world class, let alone having a say in what could be one of the last great sites in the world, and to be like, oh no, I think it should be this. Like that's madness to me.
Yeah, are you trying to say that there's no ego involved in being a golf course builder and owner here, Matt? Is that where you're doing it the way that most people who run good business would say? I employ the experts, let the experts do their thing.
That's the way I see it. The interesting thing is the role I see myself is, I just like to, because sometimes you know that if you're on the site all the time and you're working on something, there's that whole forest for the trees things. So I like to, so when you're in it and you're in the trenches, sometimes you can only see the trench.
Yeah.
So I like to just ask really broad questions, or just start conversations, and all that sort of stuff, and then just see what happens and get them thinking about it.
Yep.
I don't. So I try to influence that way. I don't come in with very strong opinions on. So when De Vries, when De Vries did the 9th green, a lot of the time, like he'll build it and I'll look at it. I'm just like, how on earth did that even come out of your mind? You know what I mean? It's like, 'cause I can wonder and go like, yeah, tee here, yeah, perfect. Green up there, that's amazing green up there. But everything that goes into making that playable,
yep,
interesting, engaging, and then actually where's the irrigation go, like all the all the types of things, where the heads go, the wind, and what the most efficient way, and all those sorts of things. Well, so he's building it, and he's the architect and the engineer.
Yep.
My grandfather was a civil engineer, or an engineer, and he would always say that architects spend their whole time building things, designing things that engineers have to come in and fix.
Yeah.
Well, when you're building a golf course, you can't just say, you can't just build those golf courses like those old paintings where it's just like Niagara Falls. Do you remember those old? You're probably too young, but there used to be an artist who would draw these crazy golf courses.
Oh,
and it would be at Niagara Falls.
Yeah, I've literally just bought an old one from an old bookshop that I remember as a kid. They're on these rock outcrops in the Arizona things, and
exactly.
I'm like, and that was one of the things. I was like, are we in a world now where we can do that with the wicked? It seems like we're always trying to be on the rock edge of the world somewhere. But anyway, go on.
That's the point. Like, that's an architect. That's not an engineer.
Yeah.
The engineer's going to go, well, how do I get irrigation there? How do I get drainage?
Yep.
Where's the sun? Where's the wind?
Yep.
Where's someone who can only carry it 100 yards? Where's someone who's going to,
Yeah. Mate, as a super, I spent my time fixing those things on the golf course, and I'm sitting there going, why? Why did, whoever it was, put that there or make it in that shape? How am I meant to cut that? How am I meant to look after it with water? But that's what De Vries is saying. That's what he's doing while he's out there.
Yeah, 100%. And that's where, Clates, there's a lot of, people are like, well, what does Clates do? You know what I mean? He doesn't, they call him pockets because he always wanders around with his hands in his pockets because he's like looking around doing things. And the other thing is he wouldn't know how to run a rake. You know what I mean? So, but the interesting thing is watching them work together. It is really interesting is that when Clates is there, he does the whole forest for the trees out of the trench stuff, where he'll be looking around. He'll be wandering around the site, and there's been major changes made just because De Vries is fixated on, okay, we're here, we're building this, and he's got a million things going on. He's not thinking about, well, geez, if we move the tee up here, how much better is this hole? Or if we switch the green over there. So a lot of those sort of things that you can change because it's sand, and you can literally make things and get rid of them in a day. Has been like all the tees on 2, a lot of the 8, 2 greens on 8, the left tee on 8, and just how that all flows. The 4th hole, there's been so many things that have happened because of Clates' just having the overall big picture.
Yep.
While De Vries is like, he's got a full plate.
Yeah.
So they work really well together, and De Vries is very collaborative. If we want to do anything, or if he has any ideas, he always asks us, even though he has no intention of taking any of us say on board.
It's a polite way of letting you know he's going to do this.
Yeah, exactly, basically.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, that's really good. That's a good insight into how that world works while the golf course is evolving, because that's, in a sense, what happens when golf courses get built. A lot of people don't realise that it's not just a plan on paper and you go out and build it, because that doesn't always work to bring out the best of a golf site. So this is very much an evolution, and you're part of that. You're seeing it unfold, and you're seeing how those cogs in CDP are working together, which is really fascinating.
Yeah, I can give you a really good example, actually. So the 8th hole actually has 2 good examples. The first one was, so it ends up with 2 greens, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's like, well, why do you have 2 greens?
I got that question, but yeah.
The green, there was 400 massive wood piles that we had to burn from the forestry residue. It took us, we could only burn at night on a certain wind. We had to put the fires out in the morning because we're so close to the airport. So it took forever. So when De Vries is down there, he's trying to work around these burn piles. So we're building the 8th hole, and they're clearing that up, and then they do a burn one night, and then Clates is down there, and Clates is like, wow, this green site, have a look at this. There's this perfect green site off to the right. Now, we'd already sort of decided it was going to be over here, but you couldn't see it because there was 2 great big huge piles of, it just looked like a big cavern over there.
Yep.
But it turned out like it was actually the burn pile was sitting on top of this like perfect green site. It wasn't down to the ground. And so then, because it's so early on, we're just like, well, we'll build both. That's basically my thing. Well, let's just build both. We'll see which one everyone
see which one you like. Yeah.
And it becomes a little bit of, I mean, is it a bit gimmicky? Yeah, but it's a public golf course and you're trying to engage people and you're trying to have something a little bit interesting and fun. And it's not that unusual, to be honest. And the green site was so perfect, and there aren't too many like it, sort of shelf green that sits in sort of a natural amphitheatre in Australia. So it's going to be an interesting green site for Australians because we don't see those sorts of holes.
Yeah.
But De Vries's point was, well, now we have 8 and 9 going basically exactly the same direction, exactly the same distance. That's why he wanted that green pushed further up, because it made 9 a bit shorter.
Yep.
And all that sort of stuff. So that's all solved. Okay, we're now going to have, if you play to the right green, you play the back tee on 9. If you play to the left green, you play the front tee. Now you have sort of different configuration almost.
Yeah. Yep.
So De Vries had been building the ninth, the 8th green, the long left 8th green, and it was a tough shot, and it was obscured by this little dune. And Clayton and I loving it. We're like, this is great. This is awesome. And then Clayton is standing off to the side. I'm standing. He's like, and he sort of says, he's like, wow, how good would it be to play the 9th from here? Right. And it was basically, instead of going off the back of the 8th green, it was going 30 completely opposite to the left. And now 9 becomes like a little dog leg. It's more just for the good players or the long players, because you can't really see the fairway. It's almost like blind. You just see patches of green. You're hitting across Marham. And De Vries is like, yeah, that's just doesn't tie in, because one of De Vries's biggest things is it's not just having a collection of great holes. It's a collection of great holes that work together and the transitions work together. You don't want to have people feeling like they're billy goating up a hill every time to get a great view and an elevated tee shot. It's really important. So if you might sacrifice something you love to get a great transition to something else that's equally as good, but and let go of something you love. And he's like, well, there's no good transition over there. So then the next day comes along and we're walking at the green and we're talking about how good it is because it's going to be so hard and how you can't quite see the right side. And, De Vries is just sort of sitting there nodding his head and smiling. And then we get a call. We go down and have some lunch. And then De Vries is like, you need to come back. We need, I've completely changed the 8th green. So in 2 hours, he blew up his whole concept.
Wow.
Built a whole nother green. And he's like, and this is perfect because now it ties into that tee Clates was talking about.
Okay, right.
So he moved the green, switched it, made it go left, smashed out the little dune where the tee's going to be. Like, what do you think? And we're just like, amazing.
I did that.
And that just shows that's infield design, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's just, people want maps and they want, detailed grading plans and they want to know how many cubic meters or yards of, I think when you're trying to do something really special, that's just got to go.
And that inspiration, that's something that when it comes to playing, these little stories that are part of that process, when you're going to know it, the story will be heard from here and likewise into the future when you're out there playing, that it was spawned in that moment, that come out of that conversation, that little, it wouldn't have been there otherwise. That wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, and it happened because we thought how good it was because it was going to be so hard.
And that's also...
Is like, hang on, we have 2 pro golfers. And
let's bring everyone down a notch.
Because his whole philosophy is like he really wants to test us, but a bogey golfer can wander around and, play to his handicap and think that wasn't too bad. But if you're a really good player, you have to really play.
You don't want to feel like you've had your head beat in afterwards if you're a higher handicapper. You want to go and enjoy it still, but then like you said, and that's a hard balance to get right. And only the best in the world do that very well.
Yeah, and I think it's after watching the process, you start to understand. It's really about having difficult greens, but with safe play spaces around them. You don't have a difficult green and then have a brutal hazard.
Yep.
A brutal bunker. Do you know what I mean? Like the 10th at Riviera or the 6th at Royal Melbourne. Or we don't play the 6 anymore, but it used to be. The dogleg right.
Yep.
It's like up the hill on the composite. You don't want to have a green like that and then have every chip impossible to keep it on the green.
Yeah.
But you do want to have greens where it's just like, man, if you're going to hit it closer, you've got to hit a very precise shot. If you get it wrong, it's going to be an easy 5.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tough 4. And so for a bogey golfer, they can pull out the putter or whatever. If they're smart and they just dink it up there and they make their five and on they go. But for the A grade players or the professional golfers, well, it's tougher to score on, and that's like, yeah, you see that sort of theme all the way through, and you start to understand how it keeps engaging for everybody.
Yeah, no, that's really, like I said, this is all interesting stuff. I like to try and make sure they're educating and learning as we go along. This is great, mate. Great stuff. A little bit about 7 Mile itself, when we touched on it. It's a magnificent site. It's a unique location. It is right near the airport there in Hobart, not far away, and it's this little finger peninsula, whatever you want to call it, of sand that just juts out sort of east. I think, is that right? I've looked at Google Earth enough to try and get a feel for it. That's all I've got. I haven't been there.
It's almost like a dolphin nose.
Yeah. So tell us, I suppose, in your words, and you know it pretty well or very well, what makes the site special for golf that outsiders, people like me that have never physically seen it, we're hearing these things, we're seeing these things in photos. What makes it such a special site? It's not on the cliffs, right? It's sand.
No, it's on the sand. It was the pine plantation next door. So you had this massive, basically sand dunes, free to move around, blow around. Marram was introduced, which started trapping the foreshore, if you like, or the beach side, and that started to create irregular dune shapes, very choppy dune shapes on the beach side. And as you sort of get into the area where there's no pine trees, but as the pine trees started to propagate, all of a sudden all the movement, the natural movement and the smoothing off of the topography just didn't happen. So now you've got the pine trees trapping a lot and the pine needles and making these just insane landforms. So there's no area where it's just sort of smooth and flat and kind of traditional links-like. It's very much like the cliff top dunes or the stuff in Ireland, but you're not on the cliffs. You know what I mean? So, so you have these crazy undulations and sort of and imagine from the building side of things, it's like it doesn't matter what you build, because even if it's the most ridiculous thing, it's going to look like it was there anyway, even if you built it.
Yeah,
so you kind of have a little bit more freedom of expression to be. A lot of it is softening. It's like, how do we take this down? How do we not make it too extreme? How do we take an area where there is, it appears like the fourth hole is a good example, where you didn't think you could play golf high on that side of the dune. You basically have three levels. You have the very top, which is about 20 meters. Then you have this midsection, which is in, about the 11 meter range. And then you have the beach side, which is down at beach level. So it's all pitched at the, so that's why every hole you can see the water, because it's just pitched at the water. But that top side was really extreme. And you're going to go down there and see it and just think this is what it was like. And they spent months just getting rid of those areas where you didn't. There's been a lot of, like DeVries will tell you, he's moved more dirt on this property than anywhere, any project he's ever done. But it's just on those few holes. And then you'll have holes where you do nothing, like 14, which is this insane par 3, where he built the green in 20 minutes and it's just like, hole's done. Like, that was the first hole he built. And I was thinking, well, this is how long it's going to take to be out of here.
We'll be playing at the end of 23.
Yeah, exactly. Then a month later, it's like, we've managed to just smash down some of the fourth. It's like, hang on, you built one hole in 25 minutes. A month in, we barely had any progress on another hole. So that's just the nature of the site. But I think that's what makes it unique. It was the pine plantation next door that just created this crazy landform right next to it.
I'm going to bring this up now because I was going to bring up the fourth later, and I, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've seen any images of 4 yet on socials, and may well be for good reason. I remember, and I've been picking into... It has
about 5 kilometres of pipe laying down the middle of it, straightened out, getting ready to go in the irrigation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right. Well, I remember early on you put a couple of topographical snippets from the concept sketch or concept layout on your socials, and I went back through there just before the interview to have a go and have a look, because I really liked the lay of the land that you were working with there. It was pretty impressive. And there were only small bits, and I know myself and Stuart Appleby were digging into you to try and get more. We wanted more topographical maps so we could see some more of the stuff. But 4 looks really impressive. There's a part there where it says, I think, 20 meters up from sea level. Obviously, the height of the sand dunes. That sort of northern length, if you like, that runs east-west of that ridge, and then before it just drops off the back, right, I think is how I've seen from
Correct.
some images, and you can tell I've been studying and looking at just single photographs to try and get this landscape. It's really, and I could use an expletive there, really high. 20 metres is a long way up. So that hole looks like a roller coaster, and I think there was an old photo that you also had there where you and Clates were right down low in the pine trees early on, and I was like, is that a punch bowl area? Is that what we're going to play up and down? And maybe you don't want to talk about it too much yet and give anything away, but
no, actually, that is the. So originally there was this massive punch bowl in there, and it was insane, because without the trees cleared, when we walked the area right along the ridge, it felt too extreme and there was too much area. You just went up and then you went straight down. You went up, you went straight down. Like, you can't play golf. And you're kind of walking on the side of the hill. Like, there's no way you can play golf here. So we're trying to cut back. And that's when the trees got cleared and Clates, and they looked at it, it's like, well, why would we go down there? Well, we can go left, now 5, instead of being a par 3 or a drive to par 4, which would be almost the same hole as 10. Why don't we then 5 becomes a big hole, not a big hole, but like a 400-meter hole or a 390-meter hole instead of a 260-meter hole.
Right.
So the fourth green, so that punch bowl green that you're seeing, we don't use that at all. And the funny thing is like when the trees are cleared off and you go and stand in it, you're like, this is so ridiculous. The fact that we thought this was going to be a green.
You got to try and pull it off.
Outrageous. Because anyway, like you would never get any sun. Like ever. It's like a black hole. But anyway, so the green then got pushed up to the left. So the 4th hole now runs on that top, tippy toes across the top of that ridge where it drops straight off at the left.
Right.
And 3 does the same thing. So it is interesting in that you go from 0 meters at the beach, you quickly go up to about 4, and then you have a little middle section where it goes to 11, it goes all the way up to 20, and it goes straight down to 2, pretty much straight down off 3 and 4. So and that's where 5 Mile will be, in that area below it.
Right.
So you'll really be up there looking down on the 5 Mile golf course.
Wow.
But the highest point on the golf course is the 4th tee, and you have a 360-degree view of everything.
So it'll be a nice place to work up to in the first few holes. You'll just get a sense of scale when you get up there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the one thing people don't have a good idea of, is the scale and how much land is down there.
Yeah. We can only ever really get that to when you're on site. That's part of the draw, I guess, really. And that's one of the things I think I spoke with you. I was hoping to get there last year, and we had what we had with our young fella, so it meant that I couldn't go anywhere. But the photos are enough for the moment until you're open. So, mate, you're a passionate Tasmanian, as I mentioned before. One of the things that I've seen, it looks like from the outside, you're taking a bit of a conscious path to give young local people employment opportunities. Is that something that's important to you?
Yeah, no, it's like the most important thing is to try and get as many. It's just such a good opportunity, and like it is hard to convince people because it's not easy work building a golf course. You're out in the elements, you're exposed. It's not just getting in the cab of a greens mower or whatever and cruising around and then going back for your break. But it's really important, I think, because if it's what I want it to be, then to say you worked at so we have a young girl coming over who worked at Tairidi for a while. Okay. She might have had a visa down there. I think she's Irish. Now she's coming over to work at 7 Mile Beach. Now, the fact that she worked at Tairidi, oh, great. She's going to know, she's going to be awesome.
Yep.
Right? And that's what I want people to think of, the kids that started at 7 Mile Beach. So if someone wants to go and work at Royal Melbourne, or if they want to go and get a job in Sydney, and they're like, oh, you worked at 7 Mile Beach? Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean? And so they're the sort of, I'm very conscious of the opportunities that we have, in that if we're very successful, that what that can do for the locals who are employed there.
No, mate, it's a great thing to be. I think that's a very noble thing to be able to offer as well. Certainly in Tassie, like I said, I don't know the Tasmanian much about Tassie, but it's good. I suppose you are probably a little bit isolated from the major cities in general, not being part of the mainland. So especially Hobart, all the way down the south end of the island. I suppose, yeah. So no, I think it's great. Young people. I do what I do, trying to I suppose highlight the benefits of working outdoors, being a greenkeeper. I talk about that a lot. I've had people get in touch with me to change career path after listening to my podcast that have become greenkeepers and love what they do. And I think I got a lot out of it, so I try and convey that to others. And I think it's great to certainly. There's plenty of young people out there that don't really know. I was one of those, didn't know what I wanted to do, and I got to start in a golf course. So I got a lot out of it, and I try and convey that to others. I think it's brilliant, mate. So well done. One of the other things that I see from the outside again is, along with the idea and the core and the essence of everything, is great golf. That's what 7 Mile is going to be thought of and known for, no doubt, once you're open, is the path. It looks like you're including the local environment and the local community at the centre of this project. Like, from what I've seen, how important is that at a place like 7 Mile Beach to have those two parts at the centre of the decision-making process of the project to make sure that you're ticking those boxes and you fit in with the local community as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's at the core of it because it's public land. You know what I mean? Like, we always get some criticism, or some people say, it's like, why do you build it there? Why don't you go and build it somewhere else? And it's like, well, because it's one of the few places in the world that exist that is this good. You know what I mean? Like, we're not building a golf course here because of any other reason, and it's just the site is just brilliant, right? It is that good. So that's why we're doing it there. But it's on public land, and I love walking around. Like, one of my favorite memories is sitting on the back of the 18th at the old course at St Andrews. I'd grabbed a coffee and some fish and chips. I'd already played earlier in the day, but it was getting, probably 4 or 5 o'clock. Sun was about to go down because it's a done hill. It's like late in the year. And you're just sort of sitting there and just watching the golf come in and watching the people running around the town. The connection between the local community and the golf, it was like part of the fabric. It was part of everything that town is about. Was the interaction between the local community and the golf course. So that is sort of something that has stuck with me. It's like, that's what I want for 7 Mile Beach. I don't want it just to be somewhere you come up and play golf. If you want to, like, we want to be able to, if you want to bring your float further down, because there is horse trails a lot further west, like 5 or 6 kilometres west of us. And there's no access to get in there. There's no to where we are. So the day use area is 4 or 5 kilometres west of where we are. So people don't get down to where we are. And now we've cleared off all the pine trees, which were just in the shocking tree anyway, and they're terrible for the local environment and the flora and the fauna and everything like that. So you have the opportunity to revegetate with natural grasses, have the area looking how it's supposed to, open it up to the public, open it up so that trail riders can get down there, have events down there. I'd love to see orienteering and triathlon and trail runs and food trucks and everything, so that the whole community gets to enjoy it. It's not just that's really important, and it's also important from a business case too, right? Like, you want to be a community hero. You know what I mean? You don't want to be fighting with the community about everything all the time. You want them to feel good about it. And if they feel good about it, they're going to come down and they're going to tell people about it, and they're going to come and use your facilities. And if they use your facilities and they have a coffee or have a beer, or God forbid someone actually who doesn't play golf started and criticised it, actually played it, thought, wow, this is actually fun. Imagine if that happened.
Geez, that'd be a scary world, mate.
Well, converts. And then that's kind of the broader the goal, if you like.
It's kind of I suppose a rebirthing of that part of the area, that part of Hobart that you said you didn't have access to.
That's what I call it. Like, people say it's like a golf development. No, it's a community regeneration project. Really, it's an area that should have had something done to it, and it's had nothing done to it. And the golf course, it just happens to be perfect for golf. If it wasn't perfect for golf, someone should be doing something else down there, right? And I'd be all for it and opening it up to the public. But it just happens to have 300 hectares of some of the most unimaginably unbelievable raw golf land that's right next to a major airport. So
it's kind of a little bit of a throwback to the old days and the thought process of links land, which was was useless for farming and agriculture. So you couldn't do anything with it.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how golf was born. That's how they used that land. And this is kind of, in a way, they weren't doing anything with it. No one was doing anything with it, but just happens to be perfect for golf.
And so the local community, the closest community is 7 Mile Beach, which is on the other side of the airport. And it's only a small sort of beach community, and it's growing. I've had people who have lived there their whole lives, and they come down, and the really cool thing about the golf course is you can't see it until you get to the first tee.
Okay.
You don't know it's there. And the first tee is sitting up on top of a 20-meter high dune, right? So you come in and all you see is pine trees and rubbish. And if you had seen the photos that I've been posting, you'd be like, where is this place? Yeah. This doesn't exist. This is a myth. When you get up on top of that hill, and all of a sudden, all you can see for as far as the eye can see is these crazy sand dunes and the beach and the water, and you can basically see to Antarctica and the mountain. And the people that have lived there for their whole lives, 30, 40, 50 years, they come and they have a look and they said, I cannot believe this exists here. I've lived here my whole life and had no idea that this could be here.
Wow, that's impressive. It's sounding more impressive all the time, and that's the idea. We're trying to to also build the profile and get people's mouths watering at the thought of getting down there when this is open. Where was I going next with this one? Turf surfaces. Okay, the golf course is going to be finished. You're just about finished construction. What are people going to be playing off? Because the essence of the feel of the golf course is going to be the turf surfaces. So what's that going to look like? What have you got?
It's all fescue, wall-to-wall fescue.
Okay.
And it was interesting because we had a lot of discussions around this, and this was sort of something that I needed a bit of convincing on, because Anthony Toogood, who is our greenkeeper, and he was at Barnbougle, but he was up at Albury for a long time, and he's worked under pretty much the 3 or 4 greatest, like John Sloan and people like that. Like he worked at Huntingdale and Bowen Heads, and where else was he? Yeah, he could tell you. Have him on. He can tell you his life story.
Yes, he's on my list.
He was like, he's like, it doesn't matter. So I can do great fescue. We can do great bent. But my whole argument was, we're in this perfect place for bent greens. Like it's cool climate grass. It's cool climate. Like let's do bent. And but DeVries was sort of like, you're going to have to tone everything down a bit. And like the area is so interesting that maybe the greens will look a little bit out of place if they're all just a bit flat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, I don't have any experience in this. You'll be able to tell me, but my understanding is that fescue green, like 10 years in, your fescue greens are going to be way better than your bent greens.
Yeah,
your bent greens might be amazing to begin with, and everyone will be like, great. And then you're just dealing with all sorts of disease control.
A lot of work.
And all sorts of issues going on afterwards. So then you're thinking, well, do we replace them and all that sort of stuff? So, because you're always because fescue greens, it never felt like they were a great surface immediately. It always took so long. They were always a bit furry, and they always had that sort of wire brush feel. While bent is always just so pure.
Yeah.
But they convinced me, and then I'm looking at some of these greens that DeVries has built on. I'm pretty glad we did, because they'd be impossible if they were bent.
I imagine the slopes wouldn't be conducive to bent grass. They'd just be too fast.
No.
So to be able to, because I often talk about this when I talk about golf course setup, golf prep as a super. I've done it. I've tried to get the greens as fast as possible, and I worked on a golf course that was 90 years old, so it was built accordingly from a long time ago. So when you put modern practices on, everyone's screaming at you to get them faster. We would get to a point on a hot summer's afternoon, and the westerlies blowing 40 k's. It would be too fast, and balls would start rolling down slopes they shouldn't be. So it limits what you can and can't do. And I've said, because of that and because of where we're going, we've got to dumb greens down. We don't have the fun factor in them anymore. So you've been able to go with a fescue that's going to allow for bigger slopes, in a sense, and make it playable, make it work, which is great.
Yeah. That's the idea. So, I mean, there's a slightly different mix, a finer mix, and more red slender than there is in the fairways, and stuff like that. But like, you're basically wall-to-wall fescue.
Mate, I know I've taken up so much of your time. One last quick question I guess I want to get out of you, if you don't mind, is 5 Mile. We're talking, you mentioned it before. Some people may have heard of it, some people may not. It's the other golf course that wasn't too long ago announced that you're going to do nearby, very close.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to... The land is slightly different. You said it's not on the giant dunes, I guess, as much as where you're building 7 Mile now. Has that been easier to think about with how 7 Mile's going? And you mentioned this wouldn't have happened because Barn Bugle has been so it's done so well. Does all those things allow you to do a 5 Mile?
Yeah, I think we always thought that to be, that sort of Kaiser quote about one course is a curiosity, two courses is a destination. I think that sort of played big on my mind. It's like the importance of having a second golf course just for that visitor number, that critical mass. He always would, like Kaiser would always talk about 1+1 equaling 3 and not 2, because now all of a sudden people are staying, they're playing 2 or 3 rounds as opposed to just one.
Yeah.
So that was important from a business standpoint. The other thing was it's such a bizarre piece of land. Because it goes up to 20 meters, drop down to 2, and now all of a sudden you've got classic links land, like classic links land.
Okay.
There is a dune in the middle at 11. It's all very soft. It's all very rolling. It has very obvious corridors. It has 5 and 6 meter dunes and then 11 meter dunes, and it goes right up against like the lagoon side. So it's got water on the other side. So I guess the way I've sort of described it is it's like you've got the wild Irish links, and then literally you walk down the hill and you're at the Scottish links. They're right next door to each other. The first hole and the 18th hole of 5 Mile Beach are basically share a fairway. Like it's not just down the road; it's the same site, and that's what is so kind of crazy about it is that to have that visitor experience. You know what I mean? You go there and it's like Lost Farm and Barn Boogle and Boogle Run, all awesome, all fantastic, but it's a very similar piece of property throughout. So you're looking at two people's interpretation of what that is, and that's where you get the difference.
Yep.
Well, this is two completely different pieces of property, right next door to each other.
Wow.
So all of a sudden you've definitely get a completely different experience. And also 7 Mile, like Mike DeVries has done an amazing job with the transitions, because as I said, you go from 0 to 20 to 0 to 20. You know what I mean? But the way you never feel like you're just getting smashed going uphill, downhill, and all that sort of stuff. Well, 5 Mile will be way more walkable as well. So, for people who struggle, who want to be out there, but it's like the idea of playing 36 holes at 7 Mile Beach is just not realistic. They can play 5 Mile Beach and have a casual day. Or it's interesting when we talked about which course we build first. This is way back.
Yep.
When we were first sort of looking at getting the land and trying to do the whole development at once, we thought that there's potential of 5 Mile Beach would be a better golf course because it's so classic, and it's that old mover, thimble of dirt to build the golf course. Well, 7 Mile Beach was like, it's going to be absolutely spectacular, but is the golf course going to be better than 5 Mile when you get into like the real nitty gritty golf architect nerd types?
Yeah.
They might find something that's a silly or that's over the top or whatever. So that's what having those conversations with people who really know what they're talking about, in the beginning, made me think that like we had to go and push on and try and get the land at 5 Mile Beach. So we've gone through the first stage, and now the DA is now in with council. So if they give us the permit, then 5 Mile Beach is on for sure.
Wow, that's just incredibly exciting, mate. It's so good to hear that 5 Mile is in a time sense just down the road, all things being equal, and you can move forward with that. I'll ask you one little question there. In terms of architects being involved, is that something that you will you go down a different path like a lot of people who do the resorts, or is it something that you haven't thought about yet, or you stick with the same?
Yeah, no, I've thought about it a lot. I really respect and like the way the Kaisers have done it. It's been so successful, and the way Barn Boogle have done it. So I'm leaning more towards having a different architect do course 2 but there's no contract signed yet. And every time we go down there, Mike and Mike
they're probably licking their
all the
lips.
great things they could do at 5 Mile Beach. But as I keep reminding them, let's get the first one right and let's worry about that stuff.
Oh, mate, very good, very, very exciting. One last thought, Matt. You've been incredibly kind with your time today. I really appreciate it. I know it's late night over there now, and it makes the time difference a bit harder. Now, I bought a couple of your 7 Mile hats, which are probably barely coming up on screen because I got my old golf course behind my head. And I'm keeping one. I bought 2, and I thought I'd have 2 different colours. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give one away for people who are listening to this podcast, mate. So I'm going to ask you, and they've got to get back to me with the correct answer. And then I'll pick a name to come with it. So my question to you is for this giveaway for a 7 Mile Beach hat. And my question is, you've got right now as it is today, do you have a favourite golf hole that you're really looking forward to playing out there on 7 Mile? And I need you to pick one. I can't just say I love them all.
No, so far, the one I keep going back to is 14.
14?
14 so far. It's a par 3.
Oh, okay.
And as Blake says, there's no great par 3s. They're just... they can only be good. The par 3 can't be a great hole, according to Blake.
14.
So far it's my favourite. But I will say, it is shocking to me when you go down there. It's like, I wonder what they're going to do here. This could be a weak hole. That could be, I don't know. And then they build it, and you're like, this is incredible. Like, it becomes your next favourite hole when you haven't played it yet, just looking at it. So, super talented people, and wow, they do an amazing job.
Oh, mate, it sounds like you're very happy with how everything's going. It's been a long process. I can say I'm very excited, having spoken to you a couple of years ago and been following intently along the way with every photo. You look at these photos, I'm really excited about how it's going to look and how it's going to play, mate. So one day I hope to get down there and have a look. If it's before you open or after you open, I'm really excited by it. Thank you so much, Mat Goggin, for being on the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast and opening up about what it takes to build a golf course and to be the man behind the project as well. Mate, you've been very kind and generous, and we're really excited about what's ahead. So thank you very much, mate.
No, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Mat Goggin from 7 Mile Beach. And obviously he's more widely known from his professional golf career, which I talked about at the very beginning. But a great yarn, a great conversation with Matt. And look, he's been on plenty of podcasts, and I was just so grateful that Matt could take the time over in the States, the time differences and everything, to spend time with me to record this interview. Really appreciative. So thank you very much, Mat Goggin. Mate, I really appreciated you taking the time out to do so. And certainly thank you also, Matt, for just being so open. There's lots of things and details and questions in there, and the details of those answers that some people probably wouldn't have answered. And Matt said to me beforehand, look, Steve, I'm an open book. Whatever you ask me, I'm happy to answer. And I was really appreciative of that. I wasn't quite sure whether you never know, but some of those answers were fantastic and complete open book. So Matt was fantastic in being able to bring that to me in the conversation, which ultimately brings that to you. Guys, I cannot say this enough, and I will not stress this enough. You make sure, please, you go and follow 7 Mile Beach on their socials. Stay up to date. Matt has lots of audio updates through his website at the 7 Mile Beach website. Going to have lots of links in the show notes, so make sure you go back to there with the references to click on them. The website is the number 7 Mile Golf, number 7 milegolf.com.au. So please make sure you go there to keep an eye on everything that's going on. They've not too long ago updated the website as well. Some wonderful photography coming out. It gives you a sense of the landscape of where this is at. And like I said, I will not stress it enough, and I will keep talking about it as I do and walk in the fairways and whenever I get the chance, because this is a really exciting project. This is something that's going to be very special on the golf landscape in Australia, and an additional piece to the Tasmanian golf landscape, which is just so special, and it's making such great inroads for the Australian world of golf known internationally. So very, very exciting, and look, something to keep following. Like I said, on their website, 7milegolf.com.au, the number 7, and don't forget their social media. You get plenty out of their Instagram as well. Lots of wonderful images coming from 7 Mile Golf, and there's lots of photography there from Lucas Michelle, things commentary and bits and pieces from Mike Clayton and obviously the CDP guys as a team, an architecture group. It's fantastic. So look, you're gonna soak it all up. I continue to say soak it all up. Get right into it and make sure you keep an eye out for when this thing opens, because not only have we got 7 Mile, it's going to be really exciting, but also, you heard there was 5 Mile, the next project, the next golf course that's part of the project overall. So super incredible location and a wonderful project, and there's a lot that's gone on to get to this point. There's a lot still to come. There's a lot to go through, and we can only support Matt and the whole team of people that are involved in this project along the way, and make sure that we get down there when it opens to make sure we support it as well. So however you do that, and don't forget about the shop, the 7 Mile Beach Golf Shop. They've got some great hats and things that you can do, and don't forget, stick to my socials because of that competition that I've got coming, where you can win the hat, the 7 Mile Beach hat that I've got to give away. So make sure you stick to my socials very, very soon. Got that all for you. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you to Mat Goggin. A very, very interesting boardroom segment of the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. Guys, I thank you so much. And of course, don't forget, please like, share, subscribe to make sure this gets around to as many people as possible. And as I said at the top of the podcast, the boardroom segment is sponsored by the Social Media Birdie. Check them out. Check us out at thesocialmediabirdie.com.au. As always, you hit them clean, we'll keep them green, and I'll catch up with you very soon.